Hey, Jaglones, how you doing? Got a lot of people in tonight. Holy cow. It doesn't tell me yet how many, but we got Miles, Patrick Starr, Vic's been here forever. Patrick actually beat Victor here tonight. It's crazy. He came all the way from the internet. We got Miles, we got Don is here. Oh, it's going to be a weird episode. Don got here before we ended it. Uh-oh. Guy Bob. I don't know Guy Bob. I think I've seen you before, Guy Bob. Welcome back. Anyway, guys, we have a special episode. We're going to talk Crocs. So, basically what I want to go over is their care requirements. So if you're interested, we're going to go over some special advice from a guy who deals in them. All kinds of crocodillians. So Josh at Empire Exotics knocks it out of the park. And I had to interview him because he's another Josh. So as soon as I knew that, I had to have him on. So you know that's my specialty. On the other side of tonight, I have new snacks. So my patrons already know about this. So these are Turkish munchies. I don't know what they are because honestly, there's like a picture on the bags, but they're all in different languages that I don't know. I don't even know what languages they are. So I'm going to pick one. I'm going to eat one. Beast Mode Aquarius, the Mad Aquarius Beast Mode is here. So yeah, if you guys could come up with a name that has to do with realm and not fish, that'd be great. I also have Coca-Cola Dream flavor. I don't know how they knew what my dreams tasted like, but I'm guessing it's going to be bad because if it's anything like my dreams, it's going to be weird at least. So let's bring Josh on now that he's ready to leave after this intro. Welcome back. Oh, before we bring Josh on, so other Josh, Ferris, and I have a small business relationship. So this is one of his t-shirts. Again, one of the comfiest t-shirts. You can go to jabberwork.com and check out all his stuff. He's got a lot of original t-shirts. I swear to God, this is like the most comfy t-shirt. I'm not getting paid to say that. This was my pay, this t-shirt. They have vinyl stickers for your car decals. They've got magnets. I think they have magnets. I might be making that up. Keychains, those wood burned, like Glowforge style stuff. So let them know. Biggs, I've been up to being on the toilet lately. Yeah, so this will be fun. Let's see if this makes me have a toilet emergency. So yeah, let's bring Josh on without further ado. Mr. Josh.
How's it going?
It's going. I kind of want to change your name tag for you, but I'll leave it because you're new here. I found out I can change the guest name tag, and so I haven't done it yet. I think I did it. Well, I did it once, but I asked kind of permission. But I want to change their name in the middle of the show and see if they notice.
See if they catch on, yeah.
We won't do that tonight. I'm going to pick this treat first, and we'll take a look at it, and then we're going to get into crocodillians. So, all right, this is the one that's on top. How long have you been keeping crocodillians? Or how long have you been Empire Exotics? Like, how long has that been around?
Yeah, I started the Exotic Empire about 2 years ago now. I've been into animals my whole life. Just like my story is the same as everybody else's. Like I started off as a kid catching garter snakes, and it just spiraled out of control from there.
Garter snakes in a shoebox that got loose in your house, right?
No, never loose in the house, but
okay.
Like definitely garter snakes in a shoebox. So yeah, the crocodillian started probably about a year and a half ago. I kind of started getting into some of the dwarf cayman species, and then recently we've kind of moved on to some more, rare and obscure species as well too. So
I saw the dwarf caymans at the last show. What show was that? I don't remember.
Janesville,
yes. I remember seeing the caymans, and I was like, oh, I know we were supposed to talk Emerald Tree Skinks, and we're still going to do that sometime. But probably when I buy them. I think right before I buy them from you, I'm going to do that.
Okay.
I'll let you know so you can get some in stock. So this is Coca-Cola Dream flavor. It smells not good.
Not like a dream?
It smells like a weird... It's got a fruit I don't recognize. Mango, maybe? Oh, that's not good. That's not my drink, but I'm going to drink it because that's what we do here. It's not good. It's kind of a mango. I don't know, like a mango peach. Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. That's like the 5th thing I've tried on the show that is just not good. So you've been doing this for a while. So And bar exotic, so you have your own facility for keeping all the animals in.
Yep.
Okay, and so, like, how big is your operation? I guess you're going to shows, and you had a massive table.
Yeah, so it kind of depends. Like I'm a one-man jam, so it's not anything like insane by like importer standards. Like we usually sit around about 1,000 animals at any given time, and that kind of ranges. Like sometimes it's 800, sometimes it's 1,500. Like it just kind of depends on what's going on here. 1,000 is sort of like my comfortable level. Like I can manage a collection of 1,000 or a stock of 1,000. Like to my standards and consistently where I'm not overwhelmed. You know.
Yeah. I will say that all your stuff looked really healthy at the show. I've gotten more discerning as an adult. Like I remember being a kid going to shows, and you'd find stuff like the most ridiculous stuff at shows for like $20.
Yep.
And you'd buy it and have no idea what you had, and then it would die, or be very poorly kept for a long time.
And that's sort of like my whole goal with the business was to kind of like remove the stigma around imported animals being bad or unhealthy. It's simply not true. Unfortunately, in this industry, what happens is the importers, just to put it bluntly, don't take care of the animals for the most part. And so our goal is to kind of flip that. I do all of the quote unquote hard work for my customers. I get them established, eating, treated, all that good stuff. So like when you come see me at a show, like I oftentimes have people be like, "Oh wow, it's amazing you breed all this," and it's like, nope, like this was all wild caught stuff, but it's what it's supposed to look like, you know. And so like I kind of pride myself on that, and that's always been my goal. Is I want to change that whole viewpoint that like importers just have whatever on their table, because it's not right for the animals, and it's not fair, and it's not necessary. We don't have to allow that in this industry, and we do for whatever reason.
Right.
So.
And I feel like guys like you will put the other guys out of business.
Yeah,
as long as there's more of you growing than them, I guess.
Yeah, and like, you know, it's one of those things, like it's not like I'm trying to like put anybody out of business, but it's just I want to up the standards. Like, you know, the way it happened for me was I kept buying these animals when I got into the industry, because like I wanted all these oddball species, and I kept getting fresh imported animals, and I kind of got good at establishing them because I kept buying them, and I was like, well, why am I paying all this money, like paying retail money for fresh imports, when I can just learn how to do this myself and then, you know, provide the public with better animals? And that's just kind of how it started, and that's where it started. You know, that's how it is now. That's where it's gotten me now. So
that's awesome. Like I said, I was really impressed with your table, and haven't done it for years. Like you kind of tell who's got the sketchy table.
Right.
And I expect it. Honestly, I expect it with somebody who has a variety like you have. Mm-hmm. I was like, I was pretty critical before I approached you to be on. And like I said, I was impressed. So, didn't you have matamatas? I think you had matamatas that day too. They're so cool. That's one of my favorite animals of all time. Just all the weird adaptations they have, so specific. So anyway, let's talk Crocs.
Yeah.
Let's just do dwarf caymans. Is that okay for now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
In my knowledge, I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about keeping them, but in my opinion, my semi-educated opinion, it seems like a lot of their care is pretty much the same. A lot of crocodillians, not just dwarf caymans, but so you would just scale it up from dwarf caymans for a larger species, more or less, right?
Yeah, and so I mean, there's definitely differences in each species, obviously, just based on like location in the world and all that. You know, where they come from, just like there would be for any other reptile. The thing about crocodilians is they're insanely tough. And so, unfortunately, that's why you can see the guy who's got the alligator in the bathtub that's been in there for 30 years and eating nothing but hot dogs, and it's still alive. Like they are capable of that, which is super, super sad, obviously, but they are that tough.
They're capable of surviving. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think, like, you know, Croc care kind of got lumped in as like, oh, they're all pretty similar. But in reality, like, I feel like they're not. You know, there's like temperature ranges and things like that are all fairly comparable. But as far as like the setup and like what they're looking, like what they need as an individual species, I found some pretty significant differences amongst the species I keep. And I've also noticed that as they grow, as they age, their behaviors shift a lot, and therefore, like my setups for the animals shift a lot too, from baby to adulthood. The dwarf cayman are the perfect example of that. I keep my babies like pretty much fully aquatic. They have a small basking platform they can get out on if they want to.
Okay.
I've had hundreds of baby dwarf Cuviers and smooth front caymans. I've never seen one use it. They hide under it. They'll get near it, but like I almost never see them bask. Like I'll occasionally like catch them like out on it, but they're still wet, where it's like they just came out of the water. So in the wild, as babies, they're going to be living in crayfish burrows and burrows of other animals and things like that.
Okay.
And like if you think about it, when you're this big and a little baby crocodile in Guyana or a little baby caiman in Guyana, everything can eat you. Like even the fish there can eat you. And so like their safety is the water. They don't want to be out on land because that's where the predators are. So they'll stay along embankments and along banks and rivers and things like that. And they just really try to hide. And then as they get bigger, they become much more terrestrial.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I see them. They have dwarf caimans at the zoo by me. There's a pair, and they don't keep them together generally, but I almost always see him on the land. Like he's got a third of it, I think, is land, and almost exclusively on the land. I think I've seen him in the water 3 times in 10 years.
Yep, and so that's kind of how they are. Like as babies, they spend almost exclusively all their time in the water, and as they get bigger, they spend almost exclusively all their time on land. And there's actually
that shift.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of like reports and things of like them staying wandering through the woods essentially, and actually finding like puddles or like little wallows and digging them out like almost like a pig would, and like re-wetting themselves and then wandering farther for breeding territories and things like that. They're incredible animals, and like they do a lot more than people realize. And
that's so cool.
And so like I said, like even within one species, my care shifts pretty dramatically, from hatchling to adult.
I mean, I just started learning about how smart they are, crocodilians in general, but I was blown away. Like you see them and they look like these plodding doofuses. Like they don't seem very smart. They seem like I'm a mouth. I'm going to put something in my mouth and then I'm going to swallow that thing. And that's my life. But yeah, it's shocking to me to see how intelligent they are.
Yeah.
So are these? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like the caiman are a much shyer species. Like the dwarfs, like some of the larger caiman aren't as shy, but like the smooth fronts and the Cuviers especially are a very shy animal for the most part, and like tend to want to be just left alone. But some of the other crocodilian species that are a bit bolder, like it is amazing what they learn. And how much they train you as much as you train them. It's very interesting to watch like them figure things out, and they're way smarter than you give them credit for. And honestly, I read a really interesting paper a few years ago about comparing them to birds and how they're actually like there's a scientist who believes that they're more closely related to birds than we realize, which would make sense. The whole dinosaurs had feathers type thing. But like even the way they like quote unquote play, like how parrots will play bite. If a crocodile gets excited, they'll oftentimes snap their jaws or head thrash or things like that. And like this person who wrote this paper believes that it's actually a form of play, which I thought was super interesting. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that, but it's something to think about.
It's a neat hypothesis.
We really don't like, and I'm not a croc expert. Like I'll be the first one to tell you I'm not. I'm very new to the crocodilian game, but I it's been amazing to watch them like just get to be in the same room with them. You really feel like you're being watched and observed. It's interesting.
Like, okay, he uses his left hand to feed us. Go for the right hand.
Yeah. So, but no,
are they cool. Now, okay, so let's assume I'm coming up to you at the show and I'm interested. I'm totally focused on that tub with the dwarf caimans in it, which I was. And I appreciated all the major signs of like, do not touch.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I didn't want to listen to that sign and just be that guy like, oh, no speak English. But, I resisted. You're welcome. Because I'm cocky. I feel like I could get away with it. Not get away with it like you would let me, but like not get bitten. And then I would get bitten and be like, oh.
Well, and here's the thing: like most of those babies would not bite you, especially at a show. Like the stress level they're under just from being at a show puts them kind of in a little bit of a different mood, and plus they're not up to temperature. The thing about crocodilians is that they build up lactic acid, which is the same thing that makes our muscles sore when we work out. And so they build that up, but they can't process it like we do. Like, you're sore for a day or two, and then your body just kind of like, you pee it out, or, your body just kind of processes it.
Sure, yeah.
They can't. So stress is actually the number one killer of crocodilians.
Huh.
So if you're at a show and you're playing with your babies and you're taking them out and everybody's taking selfies and pictures and all that, all you're doing is increasing that stress level. This being said, they can handle a tremendous amount of stress. However, people often overlook how much stress they're putting on an animal, especially a baby like that, especially like those are farm babies from Guyana. So they're imported or, and obviously established and healthy here with me. But that being said, just like they're not, I don't handle them here. Like they don't ever, like I don't ever mess with them. Like, I might take them out for like a deep clean of their tubs, but outside of that, like they're never touched. And so going to a show is huge for them. They're not used to that. They're not accustomed to people. They're not accustomed to that many people. They only ever see me. They are 100% smart enough to recognize a handler and recognize who I am and recognize my voice. And so that being said, like having 1,000 people at the show walk by and put their heads over there and take their phones out and take pictures, like the animals are fine. They're not like stressing to death or anything. But I just don't feel the need to like up the stress level more than it already is.
Yeah, for sure. And then, you don't know exactly what's going on there too. Like that's what probably keeps me. I didn't spend too much time staring at them. Oh, that was nice. Because I understand that.
Sharing them with people. Yeah, and like I love sharing them with people, and like I love when kids come up and they're like, "Oh my god!" Like it's a crocodile or it's a cayman. Like they think it's so cool, and I love that, and I like sharing that with people. But I also just kind of keep in the back of my mind like what's best for the animals, and if I notice any of them like starting to behave a little differently, like if they're kind of like laying with their heads under the water a lot and stuff like that, like I'll just remove them from the table and put them under the table where they can kind of just decompress. I'm super aware of that with all my animals at the show. A lot of times when I'm at a show, like there's 5 or 6 animals that I've taken off the table simply because I felt like they were getting a little too stressed. And so like that's just how I've always been. I'm always about the animals. I'd much rather keep the animal calm and sane than make the sale, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big deal. That's a really good thing. So now I'm interested in caymans at the table.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of did my homework. I kind of know. But let's say my setup idea that I give you, like, oh yeah, I have this kind of setup, blah, blah, blah. I have a 75-gallon tank and a floating log thing and some heat lamps with the cone heat lamps. I'm ready to go. What have you got?
Yeah, so like the first thing that will automatically like rule you out of buying a crocodilian of any species from me is if you ask me how big it gets. Because I get that one a lot. It's a dwarf cayman. How big does it get? Everybody's thinking like this. I'm like, no, dwarf is still 4 feet.
Yeah.
And so like I personally don't like keeping them in aquariums. I never have. I actually keep them in totes, which I know everybody's gonna be like, "Well, that's crazy." But I keep them in big Christmas tree totes, and I put a water filter heater combo in with them. You don't have to stomach that for us.
It's for them. It's not for you. It's for these jerks over here. It's not good.
So we keep them in tubs, and then the filtration is relatively low. They live primarily in like swampier type rivers. They don't live in like fast moving water. So we keep the filtration relatively low, just enough to kind of filter out any like byproduct of them eating or pooping or anything like that. And then like water temperature is the number one thing that I focus on. I keep their water temperature around 82 degrees. So it's pretty warm. They need that to metabolize food correctly. That is one of the biggest issues. I see people they put a heat lamp over the cage over a turtle dock or whatever, and they think that's good, but the water's 70 degrees or 72 degrees. It's room temperature. And like I said, those babies don't leave the water hardly at all. It's very rare. So that means that animal is sitting at 72 degrees consistently with no way of warming up, and that's not warm enough for them to stay alive and stay processing food. They can live for a while at that temperature, but it will ultimately cause them to die. So water temperature is for sure super important. And then obviously there's like water cleanliness. Like I change waters like once a week, even though they're getting filtered constantly.
I mean that's kind of like turtles too, right? Like you want to keep them. They're just like their poop is just gross. So
yeah, exactly. And especially like I house my babies together, so like I have a big Christmas tree tote. There might be 7, 8, 9 babies in there or whatever. So it's like just keeping up on that. And then as far as like feeding and diet goes, I do a pretty varied diet with all of them. They actually really, really like insects of that size. They eat a lot of insects in
Oh,
the
sure.
wild. So,
Yeah.
like crickets on the top of the water is like a good trick to get them eating. Something about the crickets like trying to skitter on the water really gets them excited.
Okay.
And so I do like a little bit of crickets, but mostly dubia roaches, and then a lot of fish, tilapia, things like that, shrimp cut up.
Okay.
And when I feed, I don't tongue feed. I just throw food in at night, and it's gone in the morning. I don't really try to force myself on them in any way, shape, or form. I just let them kind of exist, and I'm just the feeder and the cleaner. So, but
I
yeah.
would
So
get
as
so
far as like,
attached to each one and be like, "That's little Jimmy, and that's Daisy May,"
well,
and then be
the
like,
ones
"Oh,
that
they
I
want to
build more
buy them.
personal
Oh,
animals.
yeah, I want to buy that one. She's sick. She's
Yeah.
she's sick. No, sorry, none of these are for sale.
Yeah.
Especially because you're talking like they get like a personality almost.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so then, do you deal in adults too? Like, do you get
So
adults or subadults?
yeah, I have a couple subadult cayman here. We're actually like we're in the process of moving right now too, so that's going to change up our whole plans and setup for the adult enclosures later in life. But right now,
Yeah.
pretty much everything I have is on the juvenile side. I have a couple of cayman that are in like the 3.5 foot range,
Wow.
but everything
Okay.
else is a little bit smaller. And so those animals are set up out in our facility, and they have essentially the way I do my adult dwarfs is I have big like basically a big stock tank from Tractor Supply, like I think they're like 500 gallons or something like that, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's full up to the top, and then I build basically a platform around it, and then so like I guess the platform's a bit lower than the stock tank. Then there's a little wall next to the stock tank, and then I put dirt in there so they have dirt to come out on. And
Okay.
basically, like I build essentially like a land area around the stock tank, and then have a big filter in there, to keep up with the water a little bit. Some floating vegetation to keep the like kind of some cover for them. They really like to get under things in the water, so a couple branches or cinder blocks or whatever, for them to kind of get in with, kind of hide, and then they
Okay.
can kind of come and go as they please. But that basically gives them 300 gallons of swimming area, and then their land area is probably, I don't know, like 10 by 10 or so, something in that range.
Okay.
So, and that's enough for one or two of my sub adults right now. Ultimately, bigger is always better with Crocs. There's no such thing as too big. The babies, if you put them in something huge right off the rip, can stress out because, like I said, they're living in a lot of burrows and things as babies. Like kind of how
Yeah.
they do it is when they're a hatchling, they find a crayfish burrow, they go in there, they live in there until they get big enough to eat the crayfish, and they eat the crayfish and sit in there for a little while longer. And then they move on and they go find a muskrat hole and get in that. They just kind of like move, they kind of like steal everybody else's burrows. It's kind of how
It's
they
kind of a
roll.
smart strategy
Yeah.
because I mean they're not making their own, but then you're mobile too. You're not sitting in one spot. Nothing is watching you. Like
Yeah.
you're saying, a lot of the stuff watches for prey. So they're like, oh, something lives there. I'm gonna hang out here. They're just kind of like, nah, I'm moving over here.
Yep.
I like that a lot.
And different croc species also seem to be a little bit more involved with their babies. Like a lot of the crocodiles, cayman, I haven't seen it as much documented, but like some of the like Nile crocs and things like that, they actually feed their babies and moms take care of them, and like everybody's seen the videos of them helping them out of the nest where they pick them up in their mouth and run them to the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like it kind of like I said, every species is a little different. Like the overall like basic setup, like a ton of space, warm water, a basking area, enough land for them to get out and walk around. Like those are all like I guess in that way they are fairly similar. Like they're all pretty standard issue in that way. What really varies amongst them is their behavior, and like some of them are going to want it a little hotter, some of them are going to be a little more cold tolerant, some of them are going to like there's little variations, but for the most part it is going to be relatively similar.
Okay. So you're keeping the water at 82 or so, 80,
Yep.
82 for most of them, right?
Yeah, pretty much all of them. 80 to 84 is kind of where my water temperature ranges, depending on
Okay.
day or whatever.
Then how hot is the basking? I'm assuming on the land you have a basking side and
Yep.
a cool side, so they can come out and regulate. Now, how hot is your basking side?
Yeah, on my cayman it's about 95.
Okay.
On my Cubans it's a little warmer than that, about 100. But I kind of keep them all like that. You know, I give them the option to get pretty hot. They all love it. Like they all use it. You know, obviously like my baby came and spent all the time in the water, but like all my other Crocs, like they use their basking spots to the fullest. Like my Cubans will sit in a 100-degree basking spot and just cook in it. Like they love it. And so I definitely feel like they'll utilize that. And they're not like they're not like a chameleon where like they'll sit under a heat lamp too close and like melt themselves. Like they're pretty good about temperature regulation, and like, you know, they kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like if you watch them, they'll tell you what they need. So, you know, you just kind of have to pay attention to them and make sure that you're listening to what they have to tell you, even though like they can't use words. You know, they still tell you what they need. So,
I feel like all animals do that. So you just have to be willing to pay attention. And if you don't, I don't know. That's why the early stages, it's good that they're so fascinating. When you first get a new animal, you're like, I'm going to watch it for 6 days straight. Because then you kind of get to learn their tells, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's thirsty. Shh. Hold still, open your mouth. Yeah, I think that's a really good thing. Sorry, there's like hissers over here in my, somehow they got in my crested gecko container. Now they're adults and they're just hissing for no reason. I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping they're not trying to breed or something. I gotta break that thing down and get them out of there. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's my crested and then like these massive
giant roaches with them.
Yeah, they're the big hissers, you know, with the horns on the back.
Yep.
I thought I got rid of them all. I didn't realize I had extras. So you're saying they eat a lot of insects, they're eating the fish, and they're nocturnal, so you feed at night specifically.
Yeah, for the most part. And like that's more like, you know, as little guys, they're going to be eating a lot of, I mean, caiman eat fish pretty much their whole lives. That's what their main diet is. As they get a little bit bigger, like I'll start doing a little bit more like, you know, rodents or things like that. Like I'm really big on feeding chicks for all my reptiles. I think birds get overlooked as a prey item a lot. They're lower in fat, but they're still a large enough meal that, like, you know, you can give your bigger snake a couple chicks instead of a small rat, and you end up with a much healthier overall animal because you're going to get a lot less fat, a little bit less protein. But that being said, like most captive reptiles are super overfed. So, you know, like there's nothing wrong with feeding them a little bit like less often or a little bit like less protein rich or fat rich prey item if it helps keep their weight in balance. So a lot of birds for my Crocs, a lot of birds.
I think that's a good idea because they're not as mobile. Like you're talking about the dwarf caymans that can travel, like you're saying, they travel overland through forests miles, and that they don't get that in your house. Obviously, they don't get that in their setup. So they're not using those nutrients the same way they would in the wild. So that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense as far as like keeping it regulated.
Yeah, and I've also noticed too, and I mean, this is pretty just general crocodilian husbandry, but giving them enough water, giving them enough of an option for water to get all of their limbs off the ground and then actually sink under the water. Crocodiles' bodies are not biologically built to support their weight all of the time. They're designed where they need to float. And so like I see oftentimes where like people will keep a baby caiman with like this much water, like just so his head can sit above the water. They need that space, but they also need some depth too. So actually all of my totes are tilted on an angle. So there's a deeper area and a shallower area. And then I put like some rocks in the bottom too, where they can kind of stand on those if they want to. But all crocodiles need to basically be able to decompress where they can sink under the water. And for adult crocodiles, you need at least like 8 feet of depth for them to do that.
Good God.
And, you know, more is always better. Like I said, like you can't go too big for an adult croc. So, you know, if you give them 100 foot by 100 foot with a 30-foot deep pond in the middle of it, they'll use it. And so it's, you know, it's super important to give them as much space as possible. And I think a lot of people overlook like how much space they'll actually use. There's a gentleman down in Florida, Kyle Ashblith, I think I'm saying his last name right, but he's Primitive Predators on YouTube and stuff, and he's got some dough, and he just set up a huge crocodile facility, and like watching his animals in these giant enclosures and how he's built them, like it's amazing. I mean, he hatched out Niles, and like the moms carried the babies to the water just like they would in the wild, and just, I mean, it was just so cool to see. Like, I mean, he's just rocking it. He's doing so well. You know, he produced Salties last year. He's just, I mean, he's really doing it right. And it's definitely, it's inspiring to me. That's where I want to go. I want to have like those type of enclosures. So
Hell yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. Now, where's your facility at?
So I'm in Michigan.
Okay, that's not that far. Like, where at in Michigan?
So like I'm an hour and a half north of Detroit. So
So you're up
like
there.
like I'm like 6 hours from Janesville.
Okay. And then Tinley is
Yeah.
how far? Like, Tinley be another 6 or like
Tinley be
8?
like 4.5 for me.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess because Janesville is the other way. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, because you're
I have to
coming
go
down
around
around
the
the
lake.
lake. Yeah.
Yep.
I got you. We go to Grand Rapids every year, so I kind of am familiar with the
Okay,
routes.
so that's the opposite side of the state. So I'm like 2.5 hours from Grand Rapids.
Like east?
Yes.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'd still be a trip. But that's just so cool. I could see that. I could see you with a big pond outside. But Michigan's not really croc weather. You'd have to
Right,
get
yeah.
like, one of those big indoor like stadiums.
Yeah, so like my bigger ones right now, like we have essentially just a big pole barn. It's like, it's probably, I don't know, like 40 by 30 or something like that. And so that's where my subadult caymans are housed right now. The rest of my Crocs are actually in my kitchen. They're all still little guys.
They're in your kitchen?
Yeah, we got rid of
Nice.
the kitchen table and replaced it with a Croc shelf. So I do waterland tubs for those guys. Because even as youngsters, like my Cubans are pretty terrestrial. They like spend a lot of time on land.
Okay.
And so that's another thing we can touch on too, is just the legality of owning some of these animals. The majority of Croc species are not allowed to be sold across state lines. Smooth front caymans, dwarf caymans, American alligators, and Morlet's crocodiles are kind of like the only 4 that can legally transfer across state lines, no problem.
Okay.
The rest of them can be donated across state lines. Basically, they fall under what's called the CBW permit, Captive Bred Wildlife Permit. For a while, the government was issuing CBWs to private keepers and zoos, and that has pretty much just shut off in the last couple of years.
Yes, they've been really cracking down on exotics.
Yeah,
in
and
general.
so like and that's not, this doesn't just apply to crocodiles too. It applies to like CBW animals, apply to primates and tortoises, and I mean all kinds of stuff. But essentially, it was just to limit the trade of endangered or whatever they deem as like the too exotic, whatever like the lawmakers deem as needing to be on it. And so that being said, I have a pair of Cuban crocodiles and a Siamese crocodile, and those animals were donated to me. They're part of a breeding program, so they were donated to me to be raised by me, and then will ultimately, like the offspring, if I ever produce them, will be basically given back to that facility, donated
That's
back
awesome.
to help. So yeah,
that's really cool. Now, what size of an area are they kept in? Like, what's their deal?
My
like
Cubans
big
right
tub.
now, like it's basically just like the large waterland tubs. You can get them; they're $700 or whatever. So like they definitely have quite a bit of space. But that being said, they're only like 2 feet long right now, so they're not at the size where like they need anything crazy.
Okay. So you're not building 100-foot by 100-foot.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But totally, like it's one of those things, like not to be like super direct, but like I'm like, we're financially ready for that. We're space ready for that. Like we're capable of doing something like that. And it's something that you really have to consider, because it's super easy to buy this little cute baby American alligator at a show for $100 and be like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever, and take it home and it's super cool. And then all of a sudden it's 3 feet long, and then all of a sudden it's 4 feet long, and then all of a sudden it's 5 feet long, and now you don't know what to do with it. And I can't tell you how many calls I take I have an alligator that's 10 years old and it's lived in a kiddie pool in my basement, and I've fed it turkey and hot dogs, and it's, this big, and it's super sad to see, but it's something you do have to be ready for. And like I always tell people too, like if you come up to me at a show and you're interested in dwarf cayman, I ask, like one of the first questions I ask was like, how are you going to house it as an adult? And like if you don't have a solid answer, and if you're not like, oh well, we're going to move and we're going to do this, and like no, like you in order for me to sell you a crocodilian, you have to be stable now. You have to be capable now to house an adult, even though you're buying a baby from me. And that's always been my rule. I personally I'm obsessed with Crocs, and so like if I keep all those baby cayman, I'm not mad.
I
They
mean,
can
how
stay here
could you
as long
not
as they
be?
want. Yeah.
Like,
So
now
I
here's
would.
the thing. Like, every time I see a special on Crocs or Crocodillians,
Mm,
that night, guaranteed I have a nightmare. Guaranteed I have an alligator-related nightmare.
really.
And I kind of know where that stems from, but every time, but I'm still fascinated by them. So if I see a special or like a YouTube video, I'm like, ooh, let's check it out. And then I'll be turning it off like, oh, that was dumb. That was so dumb. Because it immediately, like that night, triggers a nightmare. That's crazy. And it usually has to do like it's multi-level. There's like crocodiles and piranha in the water, and I'm on some precarious bridge thing where the boards are falling out, and and then I wake up as I hit the water, like, oh my god!
Right? Yeah, that's funny.
So I peed the pants again. But yeah, but I'm still fascinated. It's crazy how you get in these hobbies where you're just like totally fascinated by these things that you're legitimately afraid of on some level. Like
Yeah, and
that
like
said, like I'll approach them in the wild, like alligators I've approached in the wild, like an idiot in Florida, um, and come out unscathed. But yeah, not I don't know. It's not
well,
good.
and for the most part, like I can pretty confidently say that like that, like you walk up on an alligator in Florida, it'll just run away from you. For the most part, moms on nests won't. Very occasionally, a bull gator who's like in the midst of breeding season might
Yeah,
give you a little test. But for the most part, like you can walk up on any alligator in Florida, they'll just dive in the water and get away from you. And
yeah,
that's sort of
yeah.
like I would say that's pretty consistent across the board with most crocodilians, with the exceptions of Cuban crocodiles and probably saltwater crocs too. I don't have much experience. Actually, I don't really have any experience with salties, but from what I hear, like they're kind of similar in that way.
Salties see
My
humans as food. Like
Yeah,
they
like they're
definitely
just
see humans as food.
and like
So
they're one of the few species that is a manhunter and has
yeah,
actively hunted people and eaten them. But yeah, like my Cubans, even at 2 feet long, will actively chase me across the floor. They have zero fear of me. They have zero fear of anything. And like they are hands down going to be my most dangerous animal. And like I have a 14-foot king cobra. I've had mambas. I've had everything, and they are absolutely hands down going to be my most dangerous animal as adults. So it's something that you need to be experienced with and prepared for and capable of safely interacting with. And like yeah, they're 2 feet now, but like even a bite from one of them at this point is pretty bad.
that's
Like
probably a visit to the ER. Yeah, one
yeah, like
bite.
they're definitely capable of making you get stitches and possibly like if one really grabbed you and tried to spin a finger off, I think they probably could at this size. And like I'm
That's
never
the
gonna
thing that
find
scares
out,
me. It's
but
not the bite. The thing that scares me about Crocs or crocodilians is not the bite itself. It's the spin. Because
yeah,
like that's where you're really losing pieces. Like the bite would suck. Don't get me wrong. Like that would be awful because all those teeth just hammering into you.
yeah.
But that spin is like the worst imaginable scenario for
Well,
me.
we actually just had something happen. Friend of a friend. I don't know if you know Greg Graziani. He's down in Florida.
I don't know.
He's a big time alligator guy. One of the first people to produce albino alligators. He might have been the first one.
Okay. Okay.
Very very experienced. He's been training crocodilians longer than I've been alive, and takes in nuisance gators and things like that. And during a routine training session with some large alligators, I don't know exactly what happened. They haven't really released the details. Like I said,
Okay.
he's a friend of a friend, so I don't know him personally, so I don't want to speak for him.
Sure.
Regardless, he ended up getting bitten, and the alligator spun, and it got him right about here in the arm, so like right about halfway up his forearm. And if you go to his Facebook page or whatever, he posted pictures of the X-ray of his arm, and like it doesn't
Okay.
even look like an arm. And it's a very very good reminder to everybody who's doing this that like even the best of the best, like
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
not paying attention, you're gonna like bad things can happen.
With probably the best trained animals. I saw the video of that girl. This was like not even last year. Clint from Clints Reptiles had her on to interview her, and she was at a show doing a show at some kid's birthday or something, and she got grabbed. Like it
Yep,
was
I
an
remember
accident.
this.
The croc was
Yep.
going for the chicken or something, and
Mm-hmm.
it grabbed her instead. And it was amazing to see how quick she wrapped around it. She gave it a bear hug, and it was just spinning with her around it, so it wasn't
Yep.
like she still had to have like 5 surgeries or something. She said,
Yep.
but And she felt bad for the Crocs or the alligator. She knew it was an accident. Like he didn't mean to grab her, which that's the problem with these big predator pets. Like an accident could be life changing. Like that could ruin your life. She could have lost her arm easily.
Well, and like I tell people too, like these like people who are getting into like, you know, some of these larger species, I'm like, you know, are you willing to let your kids be an orphan over this? And like that's seriously a good way to look at it. Like it really is, like with venomous species or crocodilians or things like this. Like, you know, like, and it's one of those things, like, you know, my fiance and I have talked at length, like, you know, she's into animals too. So like she's kind of, you know, she understands, but like I don't have any kids, like, you know, things like that. And like I literally will say that to people and their face changes because they think I'm joking and then they realize I'm not. And I'm like, these animals are capable of killing you. Like if you mess up, like these things will grab you and drag you into the water and kill you. And like it's not that they're doing anything wrong. They've been on Earth for 200 million years. Like the only thing that happened when the dinosaurs went extinct is they just got a little smaller. The reason Cuban crocodiles are so fast on land is because they used to chase down the giant ground sloths when they in the dinosaur ages. That's literally like their ancestors hunted giant ground sloths, and so that's why they're so fast on land. And so like they're like I can't, like they are dinosaurs. There's nothing else to it, and like I just have to, like, you know, I try not to paint them in a bad light because they're not these man-eating monsters that the internet can make them out to be. But at the same time, they require a huge amount of respect, and they absolutely can be a man-eater. If you don't, if you're in the wrong place or you don't know what you're doing. So it's one of those things you really have to have mentorship and have the right people in your corner and know your animals and just honestly just use common sense. Like there's no reason to be going in and touching tails and taking selfies. Like there's really not. Like you know, there's a few photos of me with my Crocs out there, but like it's during routine health checkups that we take a quick picture. And like, you know, like we're not out there making YouTube videos with them. You know what I mean? It's not what it's about. So.
I started to hate I'm not a member of TikTok, but you see the videos pop up on Facebook, and there's one guy in particular who has an alligator farm or something, or a facility, and he's got dozens apparently, but he'll be like right in their face, and like he knows what he's doing, but at the same time I'm waiting. I'm like, part of me is like, please get bit in this video so people know they can't do this, like, because there's going to be some ding dong that watches this and is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna give me a gator, and he's going to be in the hospital. He's going to be on the news because he saw this. He saw you do it, and now he thinks he can do it. Not saying he should stop doing videos or stop interacting with his animals, but maybe don't make it look so easy. Maybe show some of your blooper reel.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like, you know, there's two types of people that make those videos. There's idiots that just don't really get it, and they're just like, they have no concept of what they're doing. And then there's people who truly understand the behavior and know what they can get away with.
Yeah. That's this guy. He's like a low rent croc hunter, you know, like he's that guy. He's a low rent Steve Irwin, I think. But yeah, you want, like, I felt like Steve Irwin was always a little bit scared of the animals he was interacting with. He was always like, oh yeah, okay, he's coming at me. Which I thought was great because he didn't make it look like it was fun. Like it looked fun to watch him do it, but it wasn't fun. I was like, oh no, that's not for me, but you go ahead, Steve.
Right.
Yeah, my one interaction with an adult alligator was at this Gatorland USA in Florida. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's semi-famous. I was there I think I was 10 or 12, and they had Sawtooth was the biggest captive American alligator in the world at the time, and he was there. And so the way he was laying in his concrete enclosure, the wall was like 5 feet high, and there's a grate over it. But his tail was like up the wall and kind of hanging out. And so I grabbed the tail, so that like the end of the tail, so that they could get a picture. And he just flipped his tail. And like my arm flew into the thing between the grate, and like it hurt so bad. Like I thought it was dislocated just from him. He just like did this, like, get off of me, basically. He didn't move. The rest of his body didn't move at all. Yeah. And I was like, came off my feet, like, oh my God. But I've never touched an alligator since. But
I got a good alligator story for you. You like?
Yeah, do it.
So I worked at a zoo for a season, and I did, like, you know, just a bunch of different stuff there, and I'm still really good friends with everybody up there. And they had called me to help them move alligators inside for the winter.
Okay.
And so like, it's in Michigan, so like the gators have an outdoor pond for the summer while they're on display, and then we put them inside for the winter, no big deal. So we go through and we're jumping gators, and like it's super fun. Like I'm not gonna tell you it's not. Like we're having a blast. We're jumping alligators. It's great. Like I'm there with a bunch of my best friends that are all really good reptile handlers, and like we're having a blast. Like we're doing our thing. And the largest gator they have is only about 8 feet. His name's Newbie, and it came time for me to jump Newbie, and I was they were like, yeah, get after it, do your thing. And, this is the 5th alligator I've jumped today. Like no big deal. And so I drag him out by the tail. He's a good boy. He's not crazy. Like, he's pretty well behaved. And drag him out and jump on him and get on him, do the whole thing, get his mouth. I got a hold of his mouth, and I'm sitting there, and I kind of pull his head up to put tape on him. And I mean, I'm not a big dude. Like I'm only like 145 pounds, but I'm 6 feet tall. And so like my legs, like, I can kind of like hug him with my legs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he stood up with me on his back, and it was like hydraulics. It just went, and he just started walking away, and I just was on his back, and I couldn't stop him. Like
what do you do?
Yeah,
if he heads for the water, like, do you just jump off?
Like what I do, like what you're supposed to do is tuck your feet under their back legs when you jump on them.
Okay.
So like basically their back feet are up off the ground, so they can't really do that to you.
So you have like a move you do, like a
right, yeah. Okay. There's a technique to it, and I just like when I jumped him, I hadn't gotten to that yet because I was trying to secure his jaws first. And like he just stood up, and like I said, he wasn't being malicious, like he wasn't being bad. He was just like, yeah, I'm walking away, and like it just makes you realize like you're peanuts to them, man. And like he's not even a big one, like he's a decent sized animal.
8 foot's not really that big for an American.
Yeah, alligator. I mean, he's a couple hundred pounds. Like he's big, but he's not. I don't know. Like he's not what they can be, and just like I'm just kind of like at his mercy, like in that moment. Like you can handle them safely at that size, but like I was just on his back, and like he was going for a walk, and I was either coming or getting off. Like it wasn't really like it wasn't a factor to him. Yeah, and so like it's just people don't realize like what they're actually capable of. So,
oh my god, that's like that would be so cool. I would do that, but I'd have to be in like an institution for 3 days. Like I'd have night terrors the rest of my life, probably.
Yeah, I have a picture. I had a white tank top on when we were catching them, and I had grabbed one and taped it, and I picked it up, and it had tail whipped me in the back, and I had a perfect like alligator tail smack up my back, and like this is like a 4 or 5 foot alligator, and like it's a like perfect outline on my back of where I got whacked. You can like count every scoot on his tail, and like
oh my god.
And that's, like I said, they're not even the big ones. Like in like alligators compared to crocodiles, it's not even the same. It's not the same league. It's like peewee t-ball compared to the professionals. Like it's not the same thing. Crocodiles are way more intense, way faster, way more defensive and responsive. A lot
they're
more
fight or flight. They don't have a flight. They have like murder.
Well, yeah, and it's not even that. Like I mean, like most Crocs will run from you if you give them the opportunity. It's just like I think they feel threatened a lot faster than an alligator does. Like an alligator will just kind of like please get away from me, please get away from me, and Crocs are like, hey, get away from me. Okay, we're fighting. And so like they don't have that like I'm gonna keep trying to get away. Like they're gonna give you like I'm running away and now I'm not. And that's how they've evolved. That's how they survived millions of years. That's how they're going to continue to survive another couple million. Like it's just it's.
I mean, just imagine that coming at you. Like it's running for a second, then all of a sudden you just have this view.
Mm-hmm.
This is my throat. That's really
exactly.
That's just so crazy. So the Cubans obviously get bigger than a cayman, but how big? You said they're a smaller species, though, right? Of croc.
Yeah, I don't know. I use those terms very loosely because like even like a dwarf cayman at 4.5 feet is a serious animal. That's nothing to be messing with. But like the Cubans, males will be about 9 feet. Females a little bit smaller than that. That being said, in my opinion, Cuban crocodiles are probably the most quote unquote dangerous. They're the fastest on land. They gallop. They have a 4-beat gallop like a horse does. They don't like run. They don't scurry like a normal crocodile does. They gallop.
Oh, that's the one that like
and they
comes
can
at you.
Yeah, and they can jump. And so they're incredibly fast, incredibly agile, and like probably the most temperamental, just based on all the crocodilian species, at least from what I've seen. Like I said, I haven't worked with, a dozen species. Like I've only worked with what I've worked with, so I don't want to like make it sound like I'm some crocodilian expert, because I'm definitely not. But that being said, like in my experience, like even at the size I have them at now, like my Cubans are very forward and very bold and not afraid of me in the slightest.
At 2 feet long. At 2 feet long, they're like, "Hey, bro, you want some?"
Well, yeah, and like it's super cool though. Like they've definitely learned, like what, like they've learned that I'm the bringer of food, and they can definitely bait me into bringing them food. They'll baby call at me like I'm their mom. Yeah, they like do that little like
wah, wah.
Yeah. And like I'm such an idiot. I come running. Like I'm like, yes, like I'll feed you whatever you want because you're baby calling it. It's cute. And so like they absolutely have me trained, and it's hilarious because like we'll be sitting on the couch, like just watching TV or whatever, and it'll be 11 o'clock at night, and you'll just hear one of them start to baby call, and like off I run to go thaw out some fuzzies for them. Like,
just wait, I'll be there. Just wait.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not even in the room. They just decide they're hungry and call.
Yeah, well, like they absolutely know I'm around, because they won't do it to my fiance. They won't call to her, because I'm the only one that really feeds them or messes with them, and like they absolutely know who I am. They know my voice. Like they absolutely know the differences. So
that's what this is. Sorry, Patrick. They're little mini burgers. They're kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like a mini Oreo.
Horrible?
Sorry to interrupt you. No, they're actually. You know what? After that Dream Cola, I made it this far. And sorry, guys, I'm tapping out. Like you saw my face every time I took a drink. It's disgusting. When I smelled it, I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be bad.
Yeah, we won't force it on you. So.
It's got a weird like aftertaste that I can't place, but it doesn't taste like a burger. It's like a little mini Oreo or something, or like 2 Nilla wafers with chocolate cream. I think it's so cool. Like you said, they can train you, and that's the danger too. Is they, like you said, they're watching you, so they learn your habits and kind of develop a plan to, or they can develop a plan to like work around your habits.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily say that like they're like, I wouldn't say they have that much forethought where they're like, okay, like he comes in through this gate, so when he opens it, we're gonna rush here. Like they're not like, they don't really have like a malicious plan. But they absolutely do learn like your routine. Like they learn kind of what to expect from you. And I've even noticed this with some of like my snakes too, like some of my venomous stuff. Like if you kind of like if you develop a routine with them and then you break the routine, you can see them become uneasy. Like you can see their behavior change to the point where they're like, like this isn't how you normally act. Like, you're talking really loud, or you're not talking at all, or like they definitely will pick up on little things like that, like the Crocs will for sure, and they will respond differently.
It's weird to think of them be like sensitive, like, oh,
why
are you being loud today, Josh?
Yeah, like I kid you not, my fiance will go up to their tubs and they'll be basking or whatever, and she'll stand on like the water side of their tub, and she'll just start talking to them. She'll be like, "Oh, hey, what are you guys doing?" And they will cruise right over to see her.
That's cool.
They'll get right in the water and swim right over, and like they know they're not getting fed. They're not like jumping for food or being crazy. Like they're just coming over because she's talking to them, and they just like they have some level of interaction. They have some level of understanding that like you're interacting with them. And I don't necessarily think they like come over. They're like, oh, like attention, pet me. Like they're not like, because we don't really go hands out much, but they definitely become stimulated, and there's an enrichment there from that.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds like that's like they're enriching themselves a little bit at that point. Like, oh, let's go check this out.
And that's just my Cubans. And I really think my other Crocs will come around to that point. Just with them being so young and so small, I think they're just more in like the everything can eat me stage of life. Whereas the Cubans are just born like, I'll fight anybody. So they don't really have that like, oh, don't look at me stage. Like, they're like, yeah, whatever, man.
They're about it. Like if shit goes down, they're down.
Oh yeah. No,
they're down. They don't care.
Yeah. If you pop the lid on those waterland tubs during feeding time, like they are coming out. Like they're not staying in the water waiting for you. Like they are coming out to get the food. So
that's got to be an adventure every time. So now you're saying they're more dangerous than you have a king cobra?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could talk about anything. I think, guys, we're gonna have Josh on every week for the next 6 months. It's gonna be the Empire Exotic show from now on, or Exotic Empire. Which one is
Exotic Empire. Yep.
Okay. I said it one way, and then I think you said it the other, and I was like, oh no, it blew my mind.
Everybody says it the other way, so it's fine.
Okay, all right. So you should change it. No,
I think there already is an Empire Exotics though.
Oh, so you just flipped it. Cool, smart, smart.
Yeah.
I never saw them, so whatever. They're small potatoes. I just think it's so cool. Now I want to like badger you until you let me come film live at your facility.
You can come on anytime you want, man.
Oh shit! All right, let me talk to my wife. I'll be there in 4 hours. I think that'd be so cool. Like I'm very hands off because I respect the owners and the animals. Because reptiles, I don't feel like a lot of reptiles are there to be handled. Like that's not their jam at all.
Honestly, man, like I have people all the time, like especially with the venomous stuff, like they'll come over and like they're thinking it's going to be like YouTube, and they see me interact with a venomous animal, and like like their faces are hilarious because they're just so underwhelmed. Like it's like watching paint dry, man. Like the way I handle my animals is the most boring, like easiest, safest. Like my king cobra, I literally set a trash can down in front of his cage, open the door, he crawls into it. I lift the can up with a snake hook, put a lid on it, clean his cage, set it back down, take the lid off, he crawls out. That's how I interact with my animals. But like that's how it should be, man. Like there's no reason to be smacking them around and trying to get them to hood up and like being crazy with them. Like what's the point, man? Like you're just stressing them out. Like that's not what they're there for. They're not there for you to, you know, get your YouTube views on, in my opinion. I don't agree with that. And I've been that way my whole life. When I first got into venomous, I was a lot more into like, oh, cool, take a picture of me with this cobra hooded up. And then one day I realized like, hey, nobody really cares. Like, cool, you've got a cobra, but like that's not what it's about. It's about the educational side and appreciating what you have and like really, you know, learning something about these animals that most people will never even see in person, let alone keep. And that's what I've always been like super into. I've always really valued that. But yeah, like my king cobra, like even when, you know, I'll have people come over and they want to like, you know, film them or whatever, and I'll take them out and like, he doesn't even hood up. Like he just sits on the floor and looks at you like, what's up?
See, they're smart too. I realized a couple years before I realized about Crocs, the snakes are, especially the big snakes. I almost said predatory snakes, and then I was like, "You idiot! All snakes are predatory. You're a moron. There's no like vegetarian snake choking out a cabbage." What's in the little enclosure behind you? Victor's been badgering me. Apparently, I haven't seen it.
Which one?
The little critter keeper behind you. Is it just plants?
Oh, this? Hang on.
Yeah.
I'll get it out for you. It's cool. He's normally on a shelf with UVB and all that good stuff, but this is this is actually really cool. I'm surprised you noticed this.
Are you happy now? Is that a little frilled lizard?
This is a Sri Lankan leaf-nosed lizard. So this is actually a critically endangered species from Sri Lanka, from the cloud forest of Sri Lanka. There is one person in the United States breeding these. He's got 5 different bloodlines, I believe. I have 3 of them here. His name's Justin Munsterman. I've been working with him lately and getting a lot of his babies from him. But these guys are absolutely awesome. And as adults, they're purple and green and blue and amazing. And like the adults of these are crazy. But yeah, there's very, very few of these in the United States. Pretty much all of them are of Justin's babies and Justin's adults. So really, really cool. Just a little project.
Critically endangered, and you have them. So now, being endangered, like now they're bred captive, so they can be collected. Like collectors could get a hold of these.
Correct. So you can own captive bred ones. You cannot. They cannot be imported anymore. So they came out of Sri Lanka some years ago, and Justin ended up getting the adults. And you know, ended up being, he's super successful with them. He's got clutches hatching seems like every week. He's really cranking them out. He's doing really, really well with them, which is awesome to see. But yeah, no, like what we have in the U.S. is what we have. So these are super important as far as the conservation status, you know, goes too. And having unrelated bloodlines is really big for us, which we have, which is really cool. But yeah, so like they are, the only way to legally obtain these is through captive bred animals. And like I said, Justin's pretty much the only one at this point doing it. I mean, there might be somebody else out there who's working with them, but not to my knowledge. And I've gotten about probably 40 babies from Justin at this point that I've had come through and sell and all that stuff. So.
That's awesome. I think that's super cool to see that conservation.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm imagining they're not cheap, so anybody who purchases those. And that was just so chill. I've never owned a lizard that chill.
Yeah, they're pretty laid back. They're definitely pretty relaxed little guys. But I'll show you one of the other office pets while we're at it.
Awesome.
Cool. See if I can find one of these dudes in here. All the lights are off.
Oh, so this is what they're asking about. This is what they're asking about over here. Is what's in that giant
and the big one.
I thought it was a closet. I thought that was just closed because I saw the reflection.
Well, it is a closet behind it too. But
yeah,
this is actually. Let's see if I can pull this little lady out here. So in that cage, I have.
Oh, monitors. What is this?
Yeah, 2.2 Kimberly Rock monitors. So this is
why is it 2.2? What is that?
2 males, 2 females.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so 2 pairs in there. They live communal. This is I don't know if you guys can see really good. It's an Australian species, and so they live in rocky outcroppings, and so they have that really flat head and really kind of just overall flat body. Like this is their natural body weight.
Okay.
And so they're really flat animal to be able to wedge into rocks and things like that. But yeah, these guys are super freaking cool.
Do they do the puff up thing if they get in the rocks like a chuckwalla?
A little bit, not to the extent like a chuckwalla would.
Well, yeah, they're like balloons, basically.
Yeah. These guys more or less just kind of like run to the hills, like they just kind of hide in their outcroppings to get away.
They just dive into crevices.
Yeah, they're super fast and kind of rely on that. But those guys are super cool. I'm really hoping to breed them in the next couple months. We're going to crank up their heat and change up their light cycle here in a minute, and hopefully.
I'm blown away by the crazy stuff that you have in your house. Like this isn't your facility. This is just the room you're in.
Oh no, this is just the office. I mean, we can go. This is all Danielle's pets. This is all my fiance's pets.
You were kidding. She's an animal person. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, and like she wasn't like she always liked animals, and then she met me, and then she realized like, oh, you can own these things, and then it went out of control. So, but yeah, we have there's like a 4-foot black throat in here. There's some Saharan desert vipers in here, milk frogs, scorpion tail geckos, some crocodile dune geckos. Actually, we got those from Wally. I saw you had him on, so shout out to Wally Kern.
Wally's one of our he's one of the mentors of the show. Him and Russ have really they helped me get to 260 viewers.
Nice.
So, by my math, I'll be in 40 years. I'll have Wally's numbers today.
Perfect.
So, yeah, 40 years of doing a show a week. I just think it's so cool. I think it's so cool, like the level of animals. So now you've got a room, I'm assuming, with animals in it as well, or all your animals. Like
everything I have.
You tend to everything at the facility.
Yeah. And like honestly, I would have done this out in the facility, but just the service out there is kind of janky. Like it's just like my barn's my backyard, so it's not like I don't have to like go somewhere to the facility. But it's just like the service is just spotty enough that I can't do it. And like
that's every single guest is like got a thing outside, and it's just garbage reception there. So we had one.
I could take a phone call out there, but the one time I tried to do something like this, where it was like a live stream, it was absolutely horrible. Like I was that guy that was like, what, and like just cutting in and out constantly, and like it was not good. So,
guys, if I do make it out to see Josh, I'm just gonna film it. It won't be live, okay?
Yeah,
so then we can actually see it, and edit it. But yeah, that's something I definitely want to do that. We're gonna talk about that after this. Yeah. So maybe not soon, but soon-ish.
Yeah, so my door is always open. It is an important facility, so like we have there's always some stuff being treated and some like sick animals or things that are thin, like stuff that I'm working on getting back up to health. But like I always tell people like I'm willing to show people that stuff because I want people to see the reality of what we're doing here.
What imports mean. Yeah,
and like the industry is like really, really, really done imported animals a disservice, in a big way, and I truly believe that. And I don't think it's fair, and it's not just. And I often say that an animal's strongest day in captivity, like a wild caught animal's strongest day in captivity, is the day it was imported, because a lot of people don't take the time or have the knowledge to truly establish something. And nobody's perfect, and like, I don't do everything perfect here, but that being said, like, we're doing the work, and I just wish we could get everybody on that same page, because there's a few of us doing it, and it's really cool to see when I go to a show, and instead of seeing half dead wild caught stuff, I see some really cool, really oddball stuff that people are like, oh yeah, like I'm breeding these at home and things like that. Like, that's where I want all of this to head, and ultimately we want to head that way too. I think in the next year or two we'll probably be restructuring a bit more towards the breeding side of things. So,
I mean, why not do half and half? Like, why not do both?
Yeah, and like that's kind of the goal. And honestly, up until this point, it's just been space, man. Like my facility's not, my croc area is big, but like my import facility is only 600 square feet. So it's not very big. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I use every inch of it. Like, it's packed.
Yeah.
But it's just a 40 by 16 building, so it's not huge. And like, I mean, like I said, we pack 1,000 animals in there, and like, it's definitely well utilized. But as far as being conducive to breeding too, like running imported animals in and out of your breeding stock is kind of just not the best way, like not the best move.
You'd have to have a separate building or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Because like
imports come in with so many diseases and parasites and whatever, it'd be really hard to keep that away.
Honestly, it sounds funny, but just like my facility is essentially a 24/7 quarantine facility. Like, that's why there's animals in our office. Like, the animals in our office are our personal stuff. Like, that's our, like, we breed the scorpion tails here, and like I have a couple things set up for breeding out, in the facility too, but they really do need to be kept separate from the import stuff. Everything out there is on paper towel and just kind of kept very like clean, simple, basic, because we're monitoring health so much. That's our number one priority with all that stuff. So
yeah, for sure, their forever homes is where they're going to go. Yeah, I was on the fence. I did a lot of research even after I talked to you about the Emerald Tree Skinks, because that's my focus once I get this insane vivarium that I've been planning for 4 years now built. And I was dead set on captive bred because I want to breed them. I want to get enough to breed and do captive bred. But they're impossible to find, the captive bred. And when you do, they're ridiculous prices. So seeing your captive bred or your wild caught tree skinks was like very heartening. Like, that really made me feel better about the situation.
Right. Yeah, so, and it's one of those things, like, you got to take the time, get them fed, get them treated, get them hydrated, all the stuff that we do, day in, day out here. But that being said, I just put about 200 more of those out on the market. I just sold about 200 of them. So hopefully we'll see a lot more captive bred ones here in the next 6 months, because everybody who bought them bought more than one. So I was like, you guys have to go out and do this, like put some captive bred ones out there. So every time I get in a big quantity of animals like that I don't typically do that. Like, I'm not an importer where I bring in 1,000 of these or 200 of these, but those tree skinks, I did bring in about 200 of them, and they all did really well. So, I'm super excited to see. Like, actually, one of my customers just last night posted that they had produced some babies out of some geckos I sold them, 6-8 months ago. And like, that to me is what it's all about. Like, these rare species and these species that aren't readily available as captive bred, like seeing my customers who might only have 10 animals or might have 100 animals or might have, 3 animals, like, producing them, like, that is what gets me. That's what keeps me going, because it's so cool to watch these people like be successful with animals that came from us. It's so rewarding for us.
I mean, that's such a cool thing. And I love that you're into the like education and the betterment of the animals, even after they're out of your care. So that passion about it is very amazing. Like, that's really cool. That's really cool. Kudos to that.
Yeah. That's what it's all about for us. Like, it really is. I don't ever not answer questions. Like, I have people message me all the time with animals they bought from somebody else asking me questions about them. And like, I will 100% always take the time to do it, even if it's, I have people I've talked to for weeks trying to help them with issues, and it's never going to make me $1. It's never going to be beneficial, quote unquote, beneficial to me, but it is because I'm helping somebody learn and helping that animal. And that's all I care about.
It's beneficial to you because this is the trickle down, like, this is where trickle-down economics actually works. So it's beneficial to you because the more animals get out there and are cared for well, their friends and family are going to see that, or their Facebook followers or whatever, Instagram, are going to see these amazing animals in their care and be like, where did you get those? Josh and Empire Exotics, or Exotic Empire, whatever it is. So Josh and Empire Exotics is where I got these. and blah blah blah. They were really well kept, and I had to do like basically nothing to keep them. I have to keep them, but I didn't have to like deworm them and get them to eat finally, and go through all the other trials, the nightmare stories you hear from people that buy captive bred. I love that part of it is like done by the time they come out of your facility.
Right.
That's, like you said, that's the hard work. Like really having the setup and everything that's that labor of love. You set up their perfect little environment and you're God, and you get to set up the perfect little slice of life for them. And that's difficult, but it's like amazing. Getting them to eat and stressing out over like, are they going to eat this? Are they going to eat this? That's the hard part.
Yeah, and I think even like the stress that comes with just keeping them, like it's enjoyable in a way. Like you say, like like you even like it's fun. Like it's funny for you. Like you'd be like, oh, like setting up their environment and things like that, because like that's something that I don't really do a ton of here because it's just a quarantine facility. So for me, it's just real basic. Hides, branches, water bowl, like the real foundational basic stuff. And I always love when somebody sends me like this bioactive 6 foot by 8 foot cage that they set, a green tree python up in or something they got for me. And like, it's so cool for me. I really do enjoy that side of it too. But yeah, like, and one thing too, like, you said like the hard work, like I know I call it hard work, but it's not really that hard. It's a very basic set of rules and skills and knowledge that every importer should have.
Okay.
And there's no excuse not to if you're going to be an importer. Establishing animals is pretty easy for the most part. And I don't want to say it's super easy because like there are definitely challenges and like we have losses just like any other facility would. Like it happens. But that being said, like low stress, get them hydrated. Low stress again, get them eating, low stress again. I can't say that enough. Like keeping the stress level down is what really helps.
Okay.
Like we don't play loud music in my facility. We don't have the dogs running around up there. We don't have 10 people up there. Like my facility is so calm and tranquil. Like I'll be up there cleaning and like all of my frogs are calling while I'm in the room.
That's awesome.
And it's just awesome. Like that's how I know when it's chill up there. Because if the frogs are comfortable enough to try to be breeding with each other, I know everything's just real easy. Like everything's real laid back. And so like that's kind of like and like I'll be up there and the leaf frogs will be calling and barking at each other, and I'm just like it's so cool. And it's tricky for somebody who's just a hobbyist and somebody who's like I just want to I want to set up Emerald Tree Skinks and I want to breed them.
Yeah.
For you to get an animal that's fresh out of a crate is going to be tough because you're not going to have the knowledge or that familiarity with like, oh, what do I need to do with this thing right when it's been in a bag for 2 days and just got pulled out of the wild. Like, what do I need to do with it?
Yeah.
But that being said, like as an importer, you should know how to deal with that. It's how all of your animals come in. And so there's really no excuse to be like, oh, like I just sell them as soon as I get them. Like I just dump them out. Like it's their job to figure it out. Like I don't agree with that. I really do think that it is on the importers to establish our animals and get them up to snuff before somebody who's really like either new to the hobby or new to this species or whatever. Like I don't want you to have to call me and be like, hey, this thing hasn't eaten and like I can't its eyes are all squinty and this and that and that and this. Like I don't want you to have that stress and that problem. Like that's my job. My job is to sell them to you, and then you'd be like, hey. 2 months from now, you call me and you're like, dude, I got eggs. And then 60 days later, you're like, dude, they hatched. Like, this is so cool. Like, like that's what I'm going for. That's what I like. And I wish we could get more people on that path. And I think more people are getting on that path. Husbandry overall has gone up a lot in the last 5 years, I feel like.
So much. It's so crazy now. Even PetSmart now has the legit stuff that you need to keep the animals going. I guess they just got thermostats in. One of our members is a PetSmart manager guy. He keeps saying every time they get in good stuff, he's like, "Oh, check this out."
Yeah.
So they get in quality thermostats now. You can get a PetSmart, which is, I feel like a lot of the big box stores kind of ignore that type of stuff, like that level. Right. So that's really cool to see. That's how far the hobby's come.
And like I want it to continue that way, and I feel like the more we talk about it and the more we address it, like. There's another importer. She's in Canada, Ashley Dazan. She's really big on like the same things I am, and like watching her kind of like run her thing in Canada. You know, she ships to the U.S. a lot too, but like she's kind of doing in Canada like what we're trying to do here, and it's just really cool because I'm like, man, if we could just get like 30 of us, like if we could just have like 30 people all on the same page, all importing, all doing what we're doing, like I think it could really change the hobby, and I think it could change it in a really good way. And so like I keep trying to spread it, and I keep trying to spread information, and just keep trying to get everybody like, you know, kind of at least listening to this message, and maybe trying to get the stigma around imported animals to decrease a bit, because it's not justified and there's no reason for it. So
there are those short-term guys that are looking to make a quick buck that have given it a bad name.
Yeah, there's so many better ways to make money, man. Like this is like, if you want to make money, like you want to be a millionaire in animals, start with $1 billion. Like that's the best. Like that's the best thing I've ever heard, man. Like
start with $1 billion.
Yeah, this industry is not your get rich quick scheme. Like, is there money to be made? Yes. Is it like super easy? And you're just like, there is like kind of that like rumor too that like, oh, you're an importer, like, you know, you have money, and it's like, not really. Like it's expensive, man. Like it's expensive. Freight's expensive. You have to buy the animals. You have to factor in all the time you spend taking care of the sick ones. At least for me, all of the setups and food and things like that go into this. And so like, yeah, like if you're trying to get rich, don't import reptiles. Don't do it. Like it's not. You're not getting rich.
I feel like it's an extra full-time job, like a full-time job plus another job on top of it. Like you're probably doing stuff all day, every day.
Yeah, like my day start, it's at 6:30 in the morning, and it ends. I mean, it's 11 p.m. here tonight. I have to go out and mist and feed everybody. So it's like my day won't be done until midnight, 1 in the morning. Oh no, you're good. Like, but I'm just saying, like this is my normal days. Like this is kind of just like how it is. Like, you know, I run on about 5 hours of sleep a night, and we just jam animals all day long. So
I would have a cot out in the facility, just take a nap in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
All right, guys, frogs, keep going. This is very relaxing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the 20-minute power nap. So.
Oh yeah, well, my power nap's like 3 hours, but it's because I've got an adorable 4-year-old that lays on me, and it's like having a heat blanket for like a third of your body. Yeah, she's the best. Awesome. Easily the most high maintenance pet I've ever had. So.
Oh, I don't know it. I don't have any of those, so I'll leave it to you.
If you hit 35, my only advice for having kids, if you don't have them yet, is if you hit 35 and you don't have kids, don't have kids.
Don't have kids. Fair enough.
You've made your decisions. You clearly have made decisions about your life that you're happy with. Stick to it. Stick to your guns. Throwing a kid into the mix. I was 42 when my daughter was born, 42 or 43. And she was a surprise. She was not planned. I tell that to everyone. If you're 35 and you don't have kids,
just
don't need them. You don't need them. There's some person up in Michigan. I have cousins in Michigan that have like 6 or 7 kids each, so you're covered.
Right, yeah, you're good.
Yeah, they get mad at me because I don't know any of their kids' names. I know like the first one's name, and that's it. I'm like, listen, you want to have a herd. I'm not going to learn your herd's name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just refer to them as the tribe.
Unbelievable. Yeah, alligators have less babies than these people. So, hey, thank you for coming on. I know I kept you a little later than I said. I really appreciate it. I'm proud that you came on the show today. This is the kind of guest and the kind of show I want to do. So I really appreciate it. I really
thanks for having me, man. And we'll definitely have to do it again. It was a good time. So.
Well, we'll definitely, if I catch you between breaths at Tinley, I'll say hi. I'll say hi and stop by. I'll be there for sure. So
we'll be there too. So definitely stop in and say hi and film the table or whatever you want to do.
Awesome. This sounds like so much fun. So we will see you there, and I will be talking to you in the next few weeks at least. So
perfect, man.
All right. Have a good one, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Guys, everything about this episode was great except for this poison. Don't buy this. There's not really a label on here. It says it's dream flavored is all it says. Don't buy this. It's garbage. Yeah, it doesn't say what it is, but it's definitely got mango and taint. I think it's mango and taint. No, I'm sorry, Patrick Starr. I know it's your second time here and all, but that's not happening, my dear. Guys, I seriously, I couldn't be more proud of how this episode was. Like, I kept getting blown away and getting off track because I was just blown away by how amazing this Josh, his business and his business practices are. I hope you were as impressed as I was. So I'm going to get his link. I'm going to put it on there. I believe it's Empire Exotics. I have his card. So if you get to Tinley or get to a show in Michigan, look him up, check him out. His tables are great. Like, a lot of it, again, is wild caught, or almost all of it is wild caught, but it's all, you'll be blown away by the health of these animals. It's so good. They didn't ever say good dreams, Victor. Nice. Yeah, I'm blown away with how good this went. I was nervous a little bit because I don't know Josh, but he, again, texting him throughout this whole process of setting up the interview has been amazing. Like, he's just such a great, outgoing dude. So, Exotic Empire. All right. Queen Jedi Monkey's on it. So check him out. Check him out. Look him up. See if he ships stuff over state lines. Because, again, his stuff is top shelf for wild caught. So, probably for captive bred too. I mean, it's quality. So, thanks for coming. Thanks for being part of my life. These were good, whatever these are. Burger. Let's see if we have the rest of the package. Here we go. Osmo Burger. They weren't bad. I don't know where they're from. If you guys can make out that language, let me know. I don't know what that is. I think that word is chocolate in whatever language this is. I don't know what that is. They were good. Thanks, Patrick. Another great show. Thank you. Next week, guys, Russ Wilson. Again, honored. We're going to talk about whip scorpions, tailless whip scorpions. So, those guys, because they're the aliens, and we've never talked about those on the show. So, we're going to do that. If you have one takeaway from this episode, it is do not get a crocodilian unless you are exceedingly prepared for what you're about to get into. We didn't mention it, but they live like 100 years too. So they live on par with tortoises. So yeah, keep that in mind. They live a long ass time. So good night, everybody. Thanks again for being Juglones. I appreciate it. To all my patrons, you're awesome. There's going to be another little sneak peek before. I'm going to try to do sneak peeks before every episode. So, yeah, guys, if you're interested in Patreon, I'm going to put it in the link, maybe, in the description. So, if not, go check out jabberwork.com. They have so many cool t-shirts and so many cool things you can get, and dart frogs. So, yeah, that's it, guys. Have a great night.